Okay. Good evening and welcome. My name is Kate Jones. I work on all things tech for the League of Women Voters of Frederick County. At tonight's forum, we will hear from some of the Republican candidates for Maryland's 6th Congressional District. We heard from other Democratic candidates in a forum last week and on April 11th and on April 16th, and the final forum for Democratic candidates will be on April 23rd. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan group. We encourage informed and active participation in all levels of government. We strive to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and we influence public policy through education and advocacy. Dr. Betty Mayfield is our moderator tonight. She's a professor emerita of mathematics at Hood College and a past co-president of the League of Women Voters of Frederick County. She will review the rules for tonight's forum and get us started by calling on our candidates for their opening remarks. Please welcome tonight's forum candidates, forum participants. And one of the candidates has just arrived, so I'm going to go ahead and admit her because Dr. Mayfield will be giving her instructions.
Thank you, Kate, and welcome everyone. I'd like to remind you that tonight's event is not a debate, it's a forum. That means that we will ask candidates questions one at a time, and they will have 1 minute to respond. There will be no provision for rebuttal or for responding to other candidates. But the candidates know that at the end of the evening, they'll have 2 minutes for a closing statement. And if there's any question you wish I had asked you or anything you would like to say in response to another candidate's response, that is the time to say whatever you want to say. And of course, we ask that everyone show respect for all the candidates throughout the forum. Our timekeeper tonight is Dr. Rosemary Orthman. The candidates know they must keep her in view on their Zoom screen so they can see her hold up cards indicating how much time they have left. If candidates go over their allotted time, they may be muted by the tech team. Tonight's forum will be live streamed and also recorded and posted on YouTube, as well as the League's website and our Facebook page in the next couple of days. And now let's meet our candidates. They're enthusiastic and excited about tonight's event and look forward to telling you why they want to represent District 6 in the House of Representatives. We'll introduce them in alphabetical order. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make opening remarks. So Mr. Chris Heiser, we will start with you.
Good evening, and thank you, League of Women Voters, for having us here tonight. I want to start off with a question. Do you want somebody who's going to fight for equal pay for women and preserve women's sports, the integrity of not allowing biological males in the locker rooms and bathrooms? Well, that is me, Chris Heiser. I am a decorated, retired Maryland State Trooper, Medal of Valor recipient. After I retired, I served 7 tours in Iraq and 3 tours in Afghanistan as a military contractor protecting our generals. I came home and I saw a need for chaplaincy to help our members of the military with PTSD and suicide prevention. So I went back to school and got my master's degree in chaplaincy. Now I serve with the Veteran Service Center in Frederick, Maryland, which is also known as Platoon 22, part of the Goodwill. I'm a volunteer chaplain there. I'm part of the Family Rights for Religious Freedom in Montgomery County, where we protest the school boards for the opt-out option to be reinstated, giving the parents the right to choose when their children receive such education and that is sexually explicit. I will always fight for school choice. The money should follow the students. And being a retired Maryland State Trooper, I will always defend the men and women in blue. I feel I'm the best candidate for CD6. I've never won before. I haven't lost in these races. And I feel my blue collar status in a common sense Republican makes me the best candidate. I'm Chris Heiser, and remember, you are wiser with Heiser. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heiser. Our next candidate is Dr. Mariella Roca. You're muted.
Yes, good evening. Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for putting this together. It is such a great opportunity for organizations like you to do these kinds of events so us candidates can have this opportunity to speak to voters and tell us about our races and why we feel we're the best candidate. My name is Dr. Mariela Roca, and I'm running for Congress because I truly feel like I'm tired of the dysfunction down in Washington and DC. I feel like there's too much drama and not enough results, and I'm running for Congress to change that. I'm running for my kids and for your kids and for the kids of our entire country. I'm a single mom, and what's happening in our schools today really keeps me up at night. The status of our country, the way things are dramatically changing. I served in the United States Air Force. I'm an Air Force veteran. I served overseas, a deployment in Afghanistan as a medical supply chain logistician, working on the Department of Defense medical supply chain procedures, procuring and distributing medical equipment and supplies. I also worked as a federal employee at Fort Detrick for about 10 years, doing the same thing, medical supply chain logistics, just for the Department of the Army. I have a doctorate in business. I have my own business, a small business owner, know the struggles of trying to make it on your own. I'm a mom to 2 kids. I have a 16-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son. And I'm really doing this for them because I want them to grow up in the country that I grew up, have the same opportunities, work hard, and become anything that they want to be. So why am I the best to serve Maryland 6 in Congress is because I've seen the dysfunction in various different angles, and I think my resume speaks for itself and my experiences. So I hope that we can make it through on May 14th.
Thank you so much. Our third candidate has just joined us, so you will have to tell me if I'm pronouncing your name anywhere close to correct. Our candidate is Dr. Brenda Chung.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Yes, thank you, Dr. Brenda Cham, actually, to be precise,
Yeah.
but I
All
appreciate,
right.
appreciate you almost having it. At least you didn't say Thiam. So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this forum. As mentioned, I'm Dr. Brenda Cham, and I live here in Hagerstown with my husband and our 2 fur babies, and we have a daughter in college just down the road, not too far away. I'm a former state delegate in the Maryland General Assembly, where I represented Hagerstown, which is District 2B, just over the mountain here. Prior to politics, I taught special education to students with autism in Montgomery County in Washington, D.C., and I was also a special ed staff specialist here in Washington County Public Schools of most recent, up until 2019. As mentioned, I have a doctorate degree in special education leadership, and I'm running for Congress because in real time, I'm seeing our country really decline in a way that I've never witnessed before. We're seeing our elderly scammed left and right. Just read an article in the newspaper just last week here in Hagerstown where an elderly person was scammed out of tens of thousands of dollars. I'm seeing our school systems and the narratives in the school system shift to topics that aren't relevant to prepare students for life after K through 12 education. So with my background and my expertise in education, and just my willingness to want to see our country get back on track, I decided to run for Congress. I'm excited about the journey, and I've met with many voters who want to see our country go in a better direction. We need some common sense policies coming out of Washington, D.C., and I'm willing to go to bat for people in District 6 as well as for the country. So I look forward to speaking with you and answering your questions tonight. And certainly at the end, I can share my website with you. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. We'll go through several rounds of questions tonight. In each round, we'll give each candidate 60 seconds in which to respond to a question assigned at random. Usually, each candidate will get a different question. And now for our first round of questions, Dr. Tiam, we'll start with you. If you are elected, what sort of impact do you hope to make during your first term?
Well, the first term, I imagine bringing some of the concerns from my constituents. As I mentioned, a lot of my constituents I've spoken to, some of them are over the age of 65, and they are scared to death of Social Security going away. Some of them, that is their only means of income. So I will ensure that Social Security is going to remain something that is people have paid into and they'll be able to benefit from. So that's one priority that I'm looking to be a part of. And secondly, looking at our borders and the way things look with people coming across the border, and some with nefarious intentions in minds, but some coming with good intentions to look for a brighter future for their families. So certainly working alongside other Republicans and common sense Democrats who want to see our country go in a better direction and clean up that immigration process to help people come to America the right way.
Thank you. Dr. Roca, what congressional committees would you like to serve on, and what expertise would you bring to those committees?
Oh, yes, that's a great question. I think a few of the top committees that I'd like to be a part of is definitely the Armed Services Committee with my military experience. The VA House Committee is another one that I'm really looking at because of my background as a veteran. I get my care 100% through the VA, and I see the struggles every single day, and I'm a fairly healthy individual. So I think that we need people that are going through these experiences that are in the district that can relate to other individuals. So I think definitely my top two would be the Armed Services and the VA committee.
Thank you. Mr. Heiser, the 118th Congress has passed the fewest bills in a century. What actions would you take to address that situation?
My first day of Congress, I have 15 bills that I want to submit. So I would work on my bills that's going to benefit my district. It's ridiculous what's going on with McCarthy and now with Johnson. We don't have a large enough majority to keep losing members. So I would stand firm on my district. I would look out for my district, and I would make sure that my 15 items that I have get pushed, and so that our district and District 6 benefit the most from this. If they're not willing to do anything for the nation, I'm going to look out for District 6 and work hard to get my bills passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Roca, you're first this time. Given the partisan nature of our national politics, will you work to develop bipartisan legislation to be an effective advocate for us, your constituents, and if so, how?
I think that's a great point, and I think that is something that we're not seeing enough of down in DC. I think the status of our country, there are a lot of things that, as a conservative, I feel very strongly about, like Brenda mentioned, border security, the economy, things like that, that as conservatives, is what our platform is, but we need to get back more to working across the aisle with people on the other side, Democrats that are willing to work. Because if the other side is not willing to work, then it's going to be a little difficult. So I think on day one, it would be important to build relationships, kind of work with individuals that kind of have the same like-minded policies in mind for their districts. But I would definitely be in support of working across the aisle and at least working with one member from the other side, maybe once a year, to try to dialogue at least. So I would definitely be for that.
Thank you. Mr. Heiser, I warn you, this looks like a very long question. I hope you can remember it all. Many families in Frederick County are struggling financially. A recent study on child care in Frederick County showed that demand surpasses supply, leading to $1 million in lost wages, especially for women unable to return to the workforce. Higher rents and food costs further strain family finances. If elected, how would you help families who are struggling?
Great question. Thank you. I would make sure that the child tax credit is reinstated, or is at the levels that need to be for our district to keep the mothers. I mean, if the mothers have to be home, or the fathers. I mean, I don't think it's a single role of mothers or fathers to stay home. But if one wants to stay home, then the child tax credit should help out to subsidize that income. And we need to look at rent limits in the area. They fluctuate literally on a daily basis in a lot of these communities, and we have to control that. We have to bring that back. I work on the homelessness task force in Frederick County, and we have a 4-step process to where we get them off the street into the shelter, from the shelter into a temporary home, from temporary home into the voucher program, and the voucher into home ownership. And everybody should enjoy that. These rents are out of this world, and we have to look at that. And we also have to look at job growth within our local community. We have 5 counties in this district. We can't apply one rule for all 5 counties. We have to be able to look at each individual one and look at the job growth, what's going to benefit that county the best at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Tim, explain your position on the federal government's relationship to local education.
That's a great question. I don't support the fact that at the federal level, the government should be too involved in the lives as far as education is concerned. I think a lot of that control needs to be pushed back to the state level, and more so at the local level with our boards of education. Our boards of education know their students a lot better than the federal government does. I think there's too much oversight. And I think if any involvement the federal government should have is ensuring that there's no laws being broken as far as discrimination is concerned. Maybe that could be some role that the federal government should have. But as far as education is concerned, I think most of that needs to shift back to the state level, and most importantly back to the local school boards, because they know their students a lot better than the federal government can ever know students.
Thank you. For our next round, Mr. Heiser, you're first. Explain your understanding of the causes of extreme weather issues like floods and fires and hurricanes, and how the federal government might address them, if at all.
That's a great question. I believe in following the science, and the science has dictated that most of our weather that we are seeing is cyclical. Whether it's every 5 years, whether it's 10 years, or 100 years. So what we're seeing, we are seeing the cycle repeat itself that we've seen on Earth through the documented history. But there is some influence from our carbon footprint as humans on Earth. We do have to address that, but we can't be in like the Paris Accord to where it had no teeth. They would mandate certain limits, and only the compliance, such as the United States and European Union, stepped up. The biggest abusers, China and India, did not. So unless we can get in there and actually penalize these people in these countries for abusing the carbon output, there's no use in trying to impose standards. I think it should be left up to the industry to be innovative and come up with their own standards, and this way we will exceed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Tim, the Voting Rights Acts of 1964 and 65 made guarantees about voter access. What is your opinion about the way voting access has changed in the last decade, and how would you address that issue in Congress?
Well, certainly that is one of our constitutional rights, is to vote. Every citizen has that right to vote, unless they've committed some type of felonious crime that prevents them from having that right. So certainly we need to ensure that people who do have that right have access to the polls. I think now, and certainly since COVID, we've really opened the gates to allowing many avenues for people to choose to vote, be it through mail-in ballot or going to the polls to vote. There are many avenues for people to be able to, vote for the person who they feel like that could best represent them, either at the local level, state level, or federal level. We certainly cannot work against that. I do support voter ID, so that we know that the person who is casting their ballot is actually the person who is casting their ballot. John Smith is casting his ballot for John Smith. So I do support voter ID to make sure our voting right is protected and the integrity of voting is protected.
Thank you. And Dr. Roca, please explain the role you believe the federal government should play in criminal justice reform.
So I think the federal government, as it stands today, does have a role. I think, in my opinion, some of the executive agencies as of today, like the Department of Justice and the FBI, really need to be looked at and to a certain extent reformed, because I feel like there's been a lot of instances recently where there's been a little bit too much of an overreach, especially when it comes to education and parents. So I think like Brenda was mentioning earlier, when it came to education, I think it's very similar with federal justice reform, that our federal agencies should be doing what they're supposed to do, number one, and number two, that they're not overreaching into areas like education and parental rights and things like that.
Thank you. Next round, Dr. Tiam, you're first. Complications can arise when abortion laws between states conflict. Should the availability of drugs like mifepristone and misoprostol through the mail be outlawed? And should the federal government create a national law addressing this issue?
Yeah, that's a very sensitive question that, everyone, be it Republican or Democrat, have some challenges with. Now that the Supreme Court justices have pushed that responsibility back to the states, each state has that responsibility to allow their citizens to make that decision about if they want to allow abortion in their state. Maryland does that. We do have that ability to do that. People who voted decided that they wanted to have abortion, and certainly every Maryland, every woman who chooses to have an abortion in Maryland can do that. As far as the drugs are concerned, the way the mailing system now is set up, and things getting lost in the mail, things taking forever to make it to the person who ordered it, people stealing mail. I can't support putting drugs like that in the mail. A child could get a hold to the mail. It's just you can't control that, and that wouldn't be. I wouldn't support that.
Thank you. And you sort of anticipated our next question, which is for Dr. Roca. With the decision about the availability of abortion being thrust back on the states, what is your position on abortion rights, contraception, and in vitro fertilization?
I pretty much agree with everything that Brenda mentioned. I firmly support the decision of the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade and push that back to the states. And as Brenda mentioned, that right is already here in Maryland. I think that us, a country as a whole, should really, work to make sure that if this is going to happen, which it isn't in the state of Maryland, and in order to legislate change, we need to start talking to our General Assembly, state level, local elected officials. We really need to treat this as a actual medical procedure. And I don't think we're talking about that enough in this country, that women are going to some of these places and the standards of care are not really similar at par with other medical procedures. So I think that, number one, it is at the state level. I support Roe v. Wade and being overturned, and we should really start making this care standards be more like other medical procedures.
Thank you. Mr. Heiser, the Affordable Care Act often comes up for a vote to continue. The president recently spoke about expanding its coverage in the State of the Union address. What is your stand on keeping as is, changing, or removing the Affordable Care Act?
I love the aspect of healthcare for all, but the way that the former administration under Obama went about it was completely backwards. They instituted a program without getting big pharma under control and the insurance companies under control. And until we get those two things under control, big pharma and the insurance companies, we shouldn't be instituting healthcare for all because they're going to run away with the bank, both organizations. So we need to work on big pharma, cap profits. We need to look at the insurance companies so that everybody has the same exchanges. I don't care if you live in the city or you live 100 miles outside the city. It should be the same exchanges and everything's available. Once they're all organized and everything comes about, then we institute the healthcare for all. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're about to go into our fifth round of questions. And Dr. Rocha, you'll be first. We have recently seen a high-profile case in which parents were held accountable for gun use by their child. How do you feel about that development? And do you think gun manufacturers should also be held accountable?
All right, so I am very much pro Second Amendment. I think it is our constitutional right to bear arms and be able to protect ourselves and our families. Do I want things to happen at schools and innocent people to be hurt? Absolutely not. I do think that there's a lot of gun laws in this country that need to be enforced. Criminals that are actually doing crime need to be held accountable and not released. As far as gun manufacturers being held liable for a high profile case where the parents were being held accountable, no, I don't think the manufacturers should be held accountable. I think as a parent, you need to be responsible. If you have arms, you need to have them locked, keep them safe, keep your kids away from them. That's what I do. So yes, I am very much pro Second Amendment, and I do not think the manufacturers should be held accountable.
Thank you. I'm amazed at how you all time your answers perfectly to 1 minute. This is quite a skill.
I think it's because we've had so much practice in the
I
last
guess.
year and a half, I think.
Mr. Heiser, the proliferation of privately owned guns and particularly semi-automatic weapons has created major loss of life, with 656 mass shootings in 2023. Do you believe it's reasonable to require training, registration, and mental stability tests before acquiring a weapon?
Yes, I do. I think we do need to have certain limitations. I don't know about the mental stability test. I don't know how you would go about that. But I think there should be training. I have my LEOSA, which allows me to carry in 50 states, and I have to requalify every year before the state to keep my LEOSA permit. So I think it would be it's a good idea. But outside of that, I don't think we have enough laws on the books. We don't need any more laws. So let's just keep what we have and reform what's on the books and get rid of the ones we don't need. Because at the end of the day, that gun is like this pen. It's a tool to me. I am the weapon. This is not the weapon. This is a tool that I choose. So whether I choose the tool of a pen, a gun, or car does not make that tool the problem. It makes the individual who wields it the problem. So mental health would be a huge aspect of considering for a gun permit. Yes.
Thank you. And Dr. Chiam, how do you think Congress should address gun violence and gun laws? And what would you do in Congress?
Yes, I too feel we have so many laws already on the books, be it at the state level, at the federal level. There are many gun laws that need to just simply be enforced. And we have to hold criminals accountable who choose to commit crimes and using a firearm to commit those crimes and engage in criminal activities. We have to hold them accountable and provide the punitive consequences that will hopefully deter other people from committing also the same crimes. I too am a firearm holder. I have a conceal and carry. I carry in places where I'm allowed to carry, and I do so in a very safe manner. I have a lot of friends who are also firearm carriers, and they have their conceal and carry license, and they do so responsibly. And that's the key. We just have to be responsible and teach children, start at a young age, teenagers, teach them how to safely handle a firearm so that it doesn't injure. So we have enough laws on the book. I don't think we need more laws. We just need to enforce the laws we have in place.
Thank you all. Next round of questions. Mr. Heiser, you're first. What is your position on the war in Ukraine? And what should the United States position be in the near future and in the long run?
We should not be there. I'm tired of paying $6 for a dozen of eggs and $9 for a pound of milk or for a pound of butter. It increases our inflation when we send money across out of our borders. No money leaves this country until our roads are taken care of, until our kids can enter school and not have to bring in their own supplies, and when our homeless vets have a place to lay their heads at night. No money leaves this country, and I will stand firm on it. And I don't care what country it is. I'm only open for humanitarian aid, and I don't care what the country is. Nobody gets any money to fight another war. Done. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Tian, our nation is a nation of immigrants. Many come here to make a better life for their children. What is your position on a path to citizenship for children brought here by their parents?
So my husband is from Guinea, West Africa. He's been here for many, many years. And he came to this country years ago. And I'm sorry, my house phone is ringing in the background, right? Who has a house phone? And, my husband came here the right way because he wanted a better life for himself. And I think we need to look at our immigration laws. We need to look at how people become citizens. We need to revamp it. It needs to be revised. People shouldn't be looking to become a citizen of the United States and be waiting for years and years and years. Now, we can't cut through red tape too quickly. We can't allow any haphazard way of revising the system, because doing so might create loopholes for people to try to obtain citizenship the wrong way. But certainly I do believe that if someone wants to come to America for a better life, we should support them in doing so. But we do have to do it the right way.
Thank you. And Dr. Rocha, what is your position on the current situation between Israel and Hamas? And what do you think the United States position should be?
So I firmly 100% support Israel's right to exist. I think what the atrocities that have happened since the Hamas attacks on October 7th were horrible. And I think that as an ally, we are our best ally in the Middle East, the only democracy in the Middle East that gives all of its citizens a right to have a good life for everyone, even Israeli Jews or Israeli Arabs. I think Israel really needs the support of the world. I'm not in favor of endless wars. I think as part of being the United States being the leading nation in the world, we do help countries when they're in need. But I think at some point also we need to, as far as Israel and Ukraine, some of these European countries also need to kind of pull their weight. But I do 100% support Israel.
Thank you. And we have reached our last round of questions. So, Dr. Tiam, you're first. What are your priorities in dealing with the border between the United States and Mexico?
The border. Wow. I think I
In
heard
1 minute.
1 minute. I know, right? Try to get on. It's so much to get in 1 minute. We have a problem at the border. We need to. Our previous administration had some good practices in place that unfortunately were using executive actions stopped or ceased. So I believe we need to, people who want to come here, you can't come illegally, remain in Mexico, wait there for your court case to be called, work in partnership and collaboration with Mexico, with their administration, and people who are seeking to come to America, just working closely with Mexico to make that happen. And I think we need to close the border because there are so many things happening with people coming across. Again, not everyone is a criminal. People are coming for good intentions, but there are drugs coming. There are, people doing bad things. So we have to look at closing the border and having some better solutions to help people come safely.
Thank you. Dr. Roca, the United States has always been a nation of refuge for people suffering violence. How should we address the issue of individuals seeking asylum, fleeing their authoritarian and violent governments?
I absolutely don't have a problem with people seeking legit asylum with an actual real reason. I think the issue that has drastically changed the situation at the southern border is we have people coming through any opening. They're not going to any border patrol station and going through the process the right way. So I think as conservatives, although we want the border to be secure 100%, being in the military, I am for law and order. An open border is a nation without a border isn't. It's not a nation. It's just the wild, wild west. We need to get people back to going and doing the process the right way, going to the border crossings and actually doing things the right way, because whether people like it or not, most people, I believe, that are coming, there's a lot of people that are coming through seeking asylum when they're really not having an actual case of asylum. So I think we just need to get back to getting people to actually doing things the right way.
Thank you. And Mr. Heiser, the 6th district is large and diverse. It includes 4 whole counties, plus part of Montgomery County, and nearly 800,000 people. How would you successfully represent the needs and interests of your constituents?
Take one county at a time. Montgomery County is an urban county outside of DC, so we have to address that, and we have to look at the growth, the job growth that's going to benefit Montgomery County and the transportation needs. Frederick County is exceeding in biotech, so I would stimulate biotech growth here in Frederick County. Washington County is for farming. I would stimulate the farming industry and dairy, and also spoke to the Hagerstown community, and they wanted to see some more education in the IT field. So bring up the citizens up on the IT. And then then Garrett County and Allegheny County, they're dying counties. They're 49 years old is the average age. We need to stimulate job growth out there to keep the families intact and to keep the people there. So if that means bringing them more education and giving them more tech experience, I'm all for that to stimulate the growth, because then we can move that gerrymandered line from Montgomery County westward as the citizens grow out west. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all. And at this time, we'll offer each candidate the opportunity to make a 2-minute closing statement. And it looks like we're going in reverse alphabetical order tonight. So Dr. Tian, we'll start with you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your patience as I was leaving one event and on my way here to jump on the call. So again, I'm Dr. Brenda Cham. Though it's spelled Thiam, it's pronounced Cham. And I am looking to get to Congress because I want to see our country do better, go in a better direction. The way the school system, the educational system is going, and the priorities that they deem are important for our students, I think is wrong. We have to focus on preparing students for world-class education, post-secondary outcomes when they graduate from high school, encouraging them to either pursue the military or a trade school or college or work. So we have to make sure that our education is top-notch. And at the rate we're going, we are really slipping. In the state of Maryland, just years ago, Maryland used to be #1 in the country. #1 in the country. And we have fallen, I believe my last recollection, we are now almost, I believe, maybe number 23 or 24, probably less than that. So we've got to refocus. We've got to focus on the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s of education to make sure that our students are ready for good jobs and competition with other countries like China, who are really preparing their students appropriately as far as education is concerned. And we need to, again, look at the border. What can we do to fix this system, this immigration system, from administration to administration, Democrat to Republican administration? I don't think it really matters. We've got to look at repairing the immigration system so that people can come here with their families and look for a good life. So I encourage you to look me up, brendacham.com. I'll be more than happy to answer any further questions you might have. Thank you very much for this evening.
Thank you. Dr. Roca.
Yes, thank you once again for putting this together. I know this takes time and it's for a lot of coordination, but we appreciate it. My name is Dr. Mariela Roca. I'm an Air Force veteran, mom of 2, and I am running for Congress because I love my country too much to see it go down the path of what is a point of no return. Us as Americans, we all strive to live our lives happy, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what we all want. And our government should be able to help all Americans live their life to the fullest potential. Everybody wants to be safe. Everybody wants to be able to provide for their families. Everybody wants to just live the American life. And I think that no matter what side of the aisle you're on, that's what we all want. So that's why I'm running for Congress. We're only 25 days away from the primary election here in Maryland. I hope that anybody watching here today gets out to vote, whether it be by mail, early voting, in person. Voting is one of the most important rights we have as Americans to get your voice heard. So I hope to earn your vote as a Republican candidate for Congress. My website is rocaforcongress.com. Roca is spelled ROCA Congress.com. There you can learn more about me and hope to earn the vote of Republican voters on May 14th.
Thank you. And Mr. Heiser.
Yes, I want to start off with my website, Chris Heiser, Hyser, for Congress, all spelled out, .com. Check out my website, very comprehensive plan on there. Okay, I am Chaplain Chris Heiser. I served my community as a trooper in my country as a military contractor across 10 tours. I will defend parental rights. Parents should have the final say on when sexually explicit material is introduced to their children. I'll fight for school choice where the money follows the student, and I will always support law enforcement. Now let's talk about the congressional representatives of the past 12 years, rich individuals from Montgomery County, District 8. What was one thing that they all had in common? They all lacked the understanding of District 6. In this race, April Delaney and Tom Rurals, top fundraisers for their parties, both reside in District 8, Montgomery County. We reject their deep pockets and rich donors from around the country. We are not too backwoods to represent ourselves. If they can't confront Jamie Raskin directly and cower behind their wealth, hoping to buy another seat in District 6, then I say you're not fit to represent District 6. I am a blue-collar, common-sense Republican. I am Chris Heiser, and remember, you are wiser with Heiser. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much to all the candidates for your thoughtful remarks to our questions, and especially thank you for being willing to serve your community by running for public office. We really do appreciate all of you. I'd also like to thank the League of Women Voters for all the work they've done behind the scenes here, the technical team, the voter services team, the leadership team, and especially to members Kate Jones, Nanette Hobson, and Jim Filson. And many thanks to our hardworking timer, Rosemary Orthman. And now I turn you back over to Kate Jones.
In closing, additional election and candidate information is available at vote411.org. Launched by the League of Women Voters in 2006, vote411.org is a one-stop shop online resource for election information. Anyone can visit vote411.org enter their address, and see what's on their ballot. Read the candidates' answers to important questions in the candidate's own unedited words, and find a lot more information about where, when, and the different methods available for casting their vote. Voters can also check their voter registration, that their voter registration is still active, confirm that their address is correct and current, and identify where their polling place will be. There have been changes this year in both the primary and the general elections, and the places you used to vote may have moved as a result of the redistricting in Frederick County. Our next forums are on we have one Democratic District 6 forum on April 23rd, and then we have the Board of Education forums. They will be held on April 25th and 30th. There are 17 candidates running for 3 open school board positions. The league will divide the candidates into 2 groups alphabetically and will host half the candidates at each of these 2 forums. Thank you for watching. I apologize for the disruption with the recording, and please remember to vote on May 14th, the primary.